Fresh off the back of his failed attempt to impeach President Joe Biden, Republican Chairman James Comer is back at it. This time, he's subpoenaed Secretary Mayorkas for information on Tim Walz's supposed links to China. Now, once again, Comer claims to have whistleblower disclosures, but we know how that's gone in the past.
This hearing is the third in the Oversight Committee's investigation into the federal government's response to the Chinese Communist Party's use of a strategy known as political warfare. The CCP employs this strategy to infiltrate and influence communities and critical sectors across the nation. The CCP's ultimate goal is to weaken and destroy its main enemy, which the party has identified as America. The committee has conducted oversight of 25 sectors of the federal government to understand if a whole-of-government approach to the CCP threat is sufficient or even in existence. Consulting with experts from the U.S. government, military, and private sector, and holding briefings with 23 federal agencies, the committee has found that the CCP is waging a war without weapons against America. And the Biden-Harris administration has no government-wide strategy to combat CCP warfare. By any reasonable analysis, the United States faces a new Cold War, but right now, only its opponent, the CCP, is committed to winning it. Unlike the first Cold War, the adversary is already within, having entrenched itself within U.S. borders, institutions, businesses, universities, and culture centers by capturing the elites and influential circles. This investigation has made clear that there's plenty of open source information available demonstrating CCP infiltration operations. It is inexcusable for federal officials to neglect their responsibilities to openly communicate about threats to the public. Also, federal leaders must resist influence within their own ranks. The CCP actively wages psychological warfare to influence decision-making and how officials carry out their responsibilities. For example, federal agencies should reject the lie that it is racist to criticize the CCP. America's adversary is the Chinese Communist Party, not the Chinese people, who are victims themselves of this regime. Finally, the face of the Cold War the CCP is waging, federal agencies should fulfill their responsibilities to the American people. Federal officials should use their platforms and authorities to equip America to strengthen their communities and create the new technologies that will secure a strong future for the nation. Today, federal agencies are ill-prepared to face the CCP threat. A government-wide strategy is decades overdue. The American people deserve better from their government, and I hope the federal officials will listen to the constructive recommendations offered today. I thank the witnesses for being here today, and I look forward to their testimony. I now yield to Ranking Member Raskin for his opening remarks.
Less than a month to go before the election, this feels like kind of a wild time for House Republicans to be discussing the CCP, and the Democrats seized on the opportunity to remind everyone how close the GOP's own ties to China are.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All the dictators and despots of the world have something in common in 2024. They're united in trying to subvert democracy in America, and they're engaged indeed in political warfare against us, as the title of this hearing has it. The vicious autocrats of Russia, the police state theocrats of Iran, the totalitarian communist billionaire bureaucrats of China and North Korea, and all their corrupt oligarchs and plutocrats seek to destroy the very idea of human rights and political freedom that are the defining ideals of America and still the hope of a world struggling against their oppression. The tyrants have something else in common. Donald Trump. He loves them all and they love him back. He loves them because he envies their total control over their societies, and they love him because they know they can manipulate and control him. He praises all of them. Putin, Orban, Xi, Kim Jong-un. Trump exults in their friendship and emulates their control over what he calls their people. When he was president, Trump said that he and Xi, the president of China and chairman of the Communist Party, quote, love each other. And Trump called Xi a brilliant man. He openly envied and marveled over Xi's total control over his people, saying, quote, he controls 1.4 billion people with an iron fist. And when people ask questions about Xi and the CCP's role at the beginning of the COVID-19 crisis, Trump repeatedly defended Xi and praised his excellent leadership, calling him a brilliant man, smart, brilliant, everything perfect. We love each other. President Xi, who's a friend of mine, who's very smart, very good man, nobody like that, the look, the brain, the whole thing. My feeling toward you is an incredibly warm one, he said. Trump's repeatedly praised Russia's lawless and bloody invasion of Ukraine as smart. At a Mar-a-Lago fundraiser in 2022, he gushed that Putin was taking over a country, a vast, vast location, a great piece of land with a lot of people, and just walking right in. At the presidential debate earlier this month, he refused to say that he wanted Ukraine to win the war, but said he would end the war in 24 hours, meaning he would, per usual, cave in to Putin's propaganda and outrageous demands and cede large parts of Ukraine to the Russian strongman who imprisons, poisons, and murders his political opponents. Trump's chief of staff, John Kelly, described his own boss as, quote, a person who admires autocrats and murderous dictators, a person that has nothing but contempt for our democratic institutions, our Constitution, and the rule of law. And to quote Trump's chilling 2018 comments to Fox News about Kim Jong-un, Trump said, he's the head of a country, and I mean he's the strong head. Don't let anyone think anything different. He speaks and his people sit up at attention. I want my people to do the same.
My. Here we are for the third installment of the Defending America from the CCP's Political Warfare. After the chairman's impeachment investigation revealed zero connections between President Biden and Chinese businesses, he nonetheless shockingly views the nakedly partisan political sham impeachment as a success. Why? Because President Biden dropped out of the presidential race. Now, that is a blatant admission that this committee was used improperly for partisan purposes. But that failure has not stopped the chairman from continuing down this road. Now that Governor Tim Walz is on the ticket, Chairman Comer has quickly pivoted to focus this committee's resource on Governor Walz's time teaching English in China, insinuating that somehow that is a problem. What we really need to be focusing on as it relates to CCP's political warfare is defending this committee from that political warfare. Remember, we have two witnesses who were the star witnesses of the impeachment investigation. The first, Gal Luft, turned out to be an indicted, unregistered foreign agent of the Chinese government. Among the allegations in Gal Luft's indictment was that he, at the behest of Chinese entities, recruited and paid an unnamed advisor to then-President-elect Donald Trump to adopt pro-Chinese positions. And even though he also was charged with making false statements to the FBI, Chairman Comer bragged and said Gal Luft is a very credible witness on Biden family corruption. That wasn't all the political warfare that we experienced during this impeachment investigation. Alexander Smirnov is a Russian indicted as a source for the FBI who literally met with Russian officials to peddle lies to the FBI. You know what those lies were? They were the same allegations that the chairman made against Joe Biden in this committee, Russian propaganda. Now, this is not, unfortunately, the chairman's only connections to China. Just months after our last hearing on the CCP political influence, a news report alleged that while he was the agricultural commissioner and candidate for governor of Kentucky, the chairman was involved in a failed Chinese hemp deal that would have benefited a campaign donor's company. This deal not only failed, but it turned out that Chairman Comer accidentally imported illegal marijuana instead of legal hemp. So maybe we should be investigating Chairman Comer's ties to the CCP.
I don't want to hear about bipartisanship on China. We were there, and then the chairman just goes all over TV and wants to accuse the Walz family of basically being spies for China with no evidence. And look, I appreciate the kind words the chairman said about me on Newsmax the other day, calling me the court jester, so thank you, my liege. Appreciate that. But he said something else that I think really sums up what this committee has done. The chairman went on and said, my job was never to impeach. Well, that is interesting. So for 2 years, almost 2 years, we have sat here. Well, we have run impeachment hearings. Well, we have had cameras, hundreds of interviews, millions of dollars to spend. And now the chairman finally says, my job was never to impeach. He only says that because it didn't work out. And so, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to have my staff send this to your office. I would love for you to sign it. And I'm going to hang it in my office as a reminder, okay, of what this committee was used for. Okay, so I don't want to hear about bipartisanship when they destroyed this committee over nonsense for 2 years. I yield back.
James Comer appears to have a bit of a humiliation kink. You would think that his failed attempt to impeach Joe Biden when the entire thing blew up in his face would be enough embarrassment for 1 year for any man, but he just can't get enough. Republicans know that their base assumes that any allegations they make, no matter how ridiculous or conspiratorial, are somehow grounded in evidence. And while that may still be true of the core sort of like die-hard Trump supporters, a lot of people can see through their BS by now. And interestingly, they've chosen to attack Tim Walz this close to the election, despite the fact that he's considerably more likable than most politicians, and attacking him as the potential to backfire, as many of the attacks already have, in particular for independent and less dogmatic Trump supporters. Now, this could fly under the radar for most voters, but if it doesn't, the obvious lies and ridiculous theatrics could do some real damage to Trump's campaign. In any event, with James Comer as the leader of this plot, it's going to end up blowing up in their faces. Stay tuned to find out which face takes the brunt of it.